The information provided in this video is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional legal advice. Always seek the advice of a qualified attorney with any questions you may have regarding a legal issue. Reliance on any information provided in this presentation is solely at your own risk. Imagine this. You're brilliant. You graduated in the top 10% of your class at a top-tier law school. You passed the bar exam on your first try, a feat that still makes your parents brag at dinner parties. You land a coveted associate position at a prestigious firm. You are ready to take on the world. Day 1, you walk into your first major strategy meeting for a multi-million-dollar case. You're sitting at the mahogany table with 3 male senior partners and 2 male associates. The energy is electric. This is it. This is what you've worked for. And then the lead partner, a man whose name is literally on the door, looks directly at you and says, "Sweetheart, could you be a dear and grab us all some coffee?" He doesn't ask your male colleague who has the exact same title as you. He asks you. In that one moment, your law degree, your credentials, your ambition, it all evaporates. You've been demoted from lawyer to assistant. This isn't a scene from a 1960s television show. This is a story I've heard in different variations from dozens of female attorneys in America today. And if you think it's just an isolated incident of an old-school partner, you're missing the bigger picture. For over 2 decades, women have made up roughly half of all law school graduates in the United States. They are entering the profession with the same credentials, the same ambition, and the same debt as their male counterparts. Yet, as you climb the ladder, the rungs seem to break. Women account for only 22% of equity partners in the nation's top 200 law firms. They make up less than 30% of federal and state judges. So where's all that talent going? What unseen forces are at play, pushing brilliant women out of the profession or stalling their careers? That is exactly what we are going to uncover. This isn't just a video listing grievances. This is a deep dive into the hidden architecture of bias that still pervades the American legal system. We're going to dissect the specific, often invisible challenges that female lawyers face, from the courtroom to the boardroom. We'll explore the psychological traps, the systemic hurdles, and the unwritten rules of the game. And most importantly, we're going to talk about strategies. By understanding these challenges, you will be equipped to navigate them, to challenge them, and to build a more equitable future, whether you're a woman in law, a man who wants to be a better ally, or simply someone who believes that justice should be blind to gender. So let's start with the most insidious and universal challenge of them all. It's a paradox so common it has a name: the double bind or the likability penalty. The concept is simple, but its consequences are devastating. In our society, we have deeply ingrained subconscious expectations for how men and women should behave. We expect men to be assertive, decisive, and confident, what psychologists call agentic traits. When a male lawyer pounds the table in a negotiation, we see a powerful advocate. When he speaks with authority, we see a leader. These are the very qualities that are rewarded in the legal profession. But we expect women to be nurturing, collaborative, and agreeable, or communal traits. So what happens when a female lawyer exhibits those same assertive, agentic traits that are required to win a case or lead a team? She violates our subconscious gender expectations. And the penalty for that violation is severe. She's no longer seen as a strong leader. She's seen as aggressive, abrasive, difficult, or worse. He's a boss, she's bossy. He's passionate, she's emotional. He's confident, she's arrogant. He's negotiating hard for his client, she's just a bitch. This isn't just a feeling. It's been proven in study after study. In one famous experiment, business school students were given a case study about a real-life, highly successful Silicon Valley entrepreneur named Heidi Roizen. Half the students got the case study with her real name, Heidi. The other half got the exact same case study word for word, but the name was changed to Howard. The students rated Howard and Heidi as equally competent. But while they found Howard to be a likable and appealing colleague they'd want to work for, they found Heidi to be selfish and aggressive, someone they would not want to hire or work with. Same actions, same words, same results. Different gender, different judgment. Now let's apply this to the high-stakes world of law. A female litigator presents her opening statement with force and conviction. The jury might perceive her not as compelling, but as shrill. A female corporate attorney pushes back on a point during a tense contract negotiation. The opposing counsel might dismiss her as difficult to work with, a label that can be a career killer. Meanwhile, her male colleague who does the exact same thing is praised for his sharp elbows and tenacity. This double bind creates an impossible tightrope for female lawyers to walk. If they are too communal and nice, they are seen as weak, ineffective, and not partner material. They get walked all over in negotiations and aren't given the high-stakes career-making assignments. But if they adopt the assertive behaviors that are rewarded in men, they are penalized for being unlikable. They get socially isolated, denied mentorship, and labeled as someone who isn't a team player. It's a classic catch-22. You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. Think about the performance review process. Feedback for men often focuses on their skills and accomplishments. John needs to deepen his technical expertise in securities law. The feedback for women is notoriously littered with comments about their personality. Sarah needs to watch her tone. Jessica can be a bit intimidating in meetings. Emily's communication style is too aggressive. These are not critiques of legal skill. They are penalties for violating unspoken gender norms. This vague, personality-based feedback is impossible to act on and serves to stall a woman's career, leaving her wondering what she's even doing wrong. The answer is often nothing. She is simply acting like a lawyer, but in a woman's body. The consequences of this are enormous. It affects everything from compensation. Women are penalized for negotiating their salaries in a way men are not, to case assignments. A managing partner might subconsciously think, "This is a tough, aggressive client. I should probably put a man on this case," without even realizing the bias in that assumption. It erodes a woman's confidence, leading to burnout and causing many to question their future in the profession. They see that the path to success for their male peers is a straight line, while theirs is a labyrinth of personality management and perception juggling. They are forced to spend a huge amount of mental and emotional energy not just on being a great lawyer, but on calibrating their behavior to be perceived as likable enough to be given a chance to be a great lawyer. It is exhausting. This likability penalty is the foundational crack in the system, a subtle, pervasive bias that colors every interaction, every evaluation, and every opportunity. It's the invisible headwind that female lawyers are running against every single day. But this challenge, as powerful as it is often just the opening act. Because what happens when this bias collides with one of the most significant life events for many professionals? What happens when a woman decides to have a child? The double bind then transforms into something even more rigid and unforgiving. It becomes a wall so high, it blocks the path to partnership for countless brilliant women. This maternal wall isn't built of bricks and mortar. It's constructed from something far more insidious: assumptions. It's a fortress of stereotypes, cemented by outdated ideas about a woman's commitment, competence, and ambition the moment she becomes a mother. Before the baby is even born, the foundation is laid. The congratulations in the office are often followed by a subtle but unmistakable shift. The question is no longer, "What are you working on?" but "So, what are your plans?" The subtext hangs heavy in the air. Your plan is to leave, isn't it? Or at least to scale back. Imagine a brilliant associate. Let's call her Jessica. For 6 years, Jessica has been the firm's rising star. She's the first one in, the last one out. She's the one they put on the impossibly complex, bet the company litigation. She's billed more hours than any associate in her class, won unwinnable motions, and earned the respect of senior partners who are notoriously hard to impress. She is, by every objective measure, on the fast track to partnership. Then Jessica announces she's pregnant. Suddenly, the trajectory of her career path alters, not because of her actions, but because of the firm's reactions. The partner she's worked with for years, the one who called her a future legend, pulls her aside. "Jess," he says with what he believes is genuine concern, "that new antitrust case is going to be a monster. Constant travel, late nights. We're thinking of putting Mark on it instead. We don't want to put too much on your plate right now." He thinks he's being considerate. He thinks he's helping. What he's actually doing is sidelining her. He's making a decision about her capacity and her ambition without even asking her. The opportunity to lead the biggest case of her career vanishes, not because she's less capable, but because she's pregnant. This is the benevolent sexism that acts as a career assassin, disguised as a helping hand. Jessica comes back from maternity leave, ready to dive back in. She has a great nanny, a supportive spouse, and the same fire in her belly she's always had. But the landscape has changed. Mark, the associate who got her antitrust case, is now the partner's new protege. He's the one getting the high-profile assignments. Jessica, meanwhile, is given document review projects in smaller, less significant cases. When she asks for more challenging work, she's met with reassuring smiles and told to ease back into it. She is no longer seen as the star associate. She is now a working mom, a different category of employee with a perceived different set of priorities. This isn't just a story about Jessica. It's the story of countless women in law. Research from the American Bar Association has shown that while men's careers often benefit from parenthood, a phenomenon known as the fatherhood bonus, where they are seen as more stable and responsible, women face a steep motherhood penalty. A study published in the American Journal of Sociology found that mothers were 79% less likely to be hired and were offered, on average, $11,000 less in salary for the same job compared to non-mothers with identical qualifications. In the high-stakes world of big law, this penalty isn't just financial. It's a tax on opportunity. The bias is so deeply embedded that it operates on an almost subconscious level. It's in the partner who assumes a new mother won't want to fly to London for a key deposition. It's in the scheduling of a critical strategy meeting at 7 p.m., knowing she has to pick up her child from daycare. It's in the casual comments in the hallway. "Wow, you're back already? I could never have left my baby that soon." Each comment, each scheduling conflict, each missed opportunity is a single brick in that maternal wall, making it higher and more impossible to scale. The structure of the legal profession itself is fundamentally at odds with the reality of caregiving. The billable hour model rewards face time and availability above all else. It creates a culture of presenteeism, where value is measured not just by the quality of the work, but by the sheer number of hours spent physically in the office. This model was designed for a 1950s workforce, for men who had wives at home managing every aspect of domestic life. But that world is gone, and the legal profession has stubbornly refused to evolve with it. So what happens to women like Jessica? They are left with an impossible choice. They can work themselves to the point of exhaustion, trying to prove they are just as committed as their male colleagues, often at a great personal and emotional cost. They overcompensate, never leaving the office before their male peers, never mentioning a sick child, terrified that any sign of their life outside the firm will be used as evidence against them in the court of partnership opinion. Or they see the writing on the wall. They see that the path to the top is littered with obstacles that their male colleagues will never have to face. They see the game is rigged and they decide to stop playing. This is the real reason for the leaky pipeline in law. It's not that women lack ambition. It's not that they opt out to spend more time with their families. It's that they are pushed out. They are pushed out by a system that penalizes them for having a life outside of their job, a penalty that is rarely, if ever, applied to men. They leave because they are tired of fighting a battle on two fronts, one in the courtroom for their clients, and another in the hallways of their own firm, just for the right to be seen as equally dedicated. The emotional toll of this is immense. It's a form of professional gaslighting. A woman is told she's a valued member of the team, but her actions are constantly scrutinized through the lens of motherhood. She starts to question herself. Am I being too sensitive? Maybe I really can't handle it. Maybe they're right. She internalizes the bias, and her confidence, once her greatest asset, begins to erode. She's made to feel that her choice to have a family is a liability to her career, a self-inflicted wound on her professional ambition. This wall doesn't just block a woman's path to partnership. It robs the legal profession of immense talent. It creates a leadership structure that is overwhelmingly male and homogeneous, perpetuating the very biases that drove the women away in the first place. The firm loses a brilliant legal mind, clients lose a fierce advocate, and the profession as a whole becomes less diverse, less innovative, and less reflective of the society it's meant to serve. But the biases women face aren't limited to the grand, career-altering moments like having a child. They exist in the daily minutiae of professional life. They're woven into the fabric of every interaction, every meeting, every courtroom appearance. It's in the way a woman's voice is perceived, the way her appearance is judged, and the way her very presence can be treated as an invitation for commentary. It's a relentless onslaught of microaggressions, a death by 1,000 cuts that can be just as damaging as a single massive blow. What happens when a woman is told her voice is too aggressive in court, while a man saying the exact same thing is praised for being assertive? What happens when her courtroom attire is discussed more than her legal argument? This is where the battle for equality is fought every single day. Not just in the partner's office, but in the spaces in between. Let's talk about those spaces. Because in those spaces, a woman in law lives under a different set of rules. It's a game where the goalposts are constantly moving, and it's called the double bind. It's a psychological catch-22 that is one of the most pervasive and exhausting challenges she will face. Be assertive and you're labeled aggressive, abrasive, or that word we all know is coming, bitchy. But be collaborative and agreeable, and you're seen as weak, a pushover, not partner material. Be passionate and emotionally invested in your client's case, and you're too emotional or hysterical. But be stoic and data-driven, and you're cold, unlikable. An ice queen. She is expected to be tough but not too tough. Warm but not too soft. Authoritative but not domineering. She has to be Goldilocks, but in a world where the bears are constantly changing the temperature of the porridge. Imagine a negotiation. A male attorney pounds the table, raises his voice, and declares his client's position is non-negotiable. He's seen as a shark, a zealous advocate, a guy you want in your corner. His female counterpart uses the exact same tactics, the same volume, the same language. The feedback she gets later? She was difficult to work with. She created a hostile atmosphere. She needs to work on her people skills. This isn't a hypothetical. This is the daily reality. It's a tightrope walk over a canyon of professional judgment, and the rope is greased with centuries of gender bias. Every single interaction requires a complex, split-second calculation. How will this be perceived? Not, is this the best legal strategy? But, how will me, a woman, executing this strategy be judged differently than my male colleague? This constant self-monitoring, this extra layer of cognitive load, is the invisible tax women pay just to do their jobs. And it's in these spaces in between where the microaggressions fester. They're not the overt, illegal acts of discrimination that you can file a lawsuit over. They're the small, subtle, often unintentional slights that accumulate over time, like a death by 1,000 paper cuts. They are the daily reminders that, in the eyes of some, you are an outsider in your own profession. Starts with mistaken identity. A senior female partner with 20 years of experience walks into a deposition room. She's there to take the lead on a multi-million-dollar case. And the older male opposing counsel looks up from his papers and says, "Sweetheart, could you get me a coffee, 2 sugars?" He doesn't even look at her face, he just assumes. He assumes the only woman in the room must be the court reporter, the paralegal, the assistant. And in that moment she has a choice. Does she cause a scene and get labeled as confrontational before the deposition even begins? Or does she swallow the indignity, correct him politely, and spend the rest of the day fighting to reclaim the authority he stripped from her with a single sentence? There is no winning choice. Then there are the interruptions. The data on this is staggering. Studies of the Supreme Court have shown that female justices are interrupted at a significantly higher rate than their male counterparts, not just by other justices, but by the male advocates arguing before them. Think about that. The highest court in the land, and women who have reached the absolute pinnacle of their profession are still being talked over. Now, scale that down to every corporate boardroom, every strategy meeting, every conference call across America. A female associate will start to explain a complex point of law, only to have a male colleague interrupt her mid-sentence to say the exact same thing, just phrased slightly differently. And the room nods. Great point, Steve. Her idea, which was floating in the air just moments before, is now his. It's a form of intellectual theft that is so common, many women have developed defensive speaking strategies. Talking faster, avoiding breaths, refusing to yield the floor, all of which can ironically lead to them being perceived as, you guessed it, aggressive. Let's not forget the comments on appearance. For a male lawyer, the professional uniform is simple. A suit. As long as it's clean and fits, no one cares. But for a woman, her appearance is a subject of constant commentary and scrutiny. Wow, you look powerful in that pantsuit. Trying to intimidate the witness. Or the opposite. That's a lovely dress. You'll certainly charm the jury. A haircut, a new pair of glasses, the height of her heels. It's all fair game for comment. These remarks, even when meant as compliments, serve a single insidious purpose. They reduce her from a legal professional to an object to be looked at. They shift the focus from the content of her mind to the content of her wardrobe, subtly reminding everyone in the room that her gender and appearance are still primary, and her profession is secondary. She is a woman first, a lawyer second, and then there's the office housework. These are the tasks that are critical for a smooth-running office but do nothing to advance a career. Taking notes during a meeting, organizing the team lunch, planning the holiday party, remembering a colleague's birthday and collecting money for a gift. Research consistently shows that these non-promotable, thankless tasks fall disproportionately on women. It happens because of ingrained societal expectations that women are natural nurturers and organizers. A male partner will look around a room of associates, both male and female, and his eyes will land on the woman when he needs someone to handle the logistics. And again, she faces a double bind. If she says no, she's not a team player. If she says yes, she's sacrificing valuable time she could have spent on billable work, on writing a brief, on networking with a client, the very things that actually lead to a promotion. Each time she plans a party, she's falling a tiny bit further behind her male peers who spent that hour polishing a legal argument. None of these things on their own, the coffee comment, the interruption, the compliment on a dress, the request to take notes, are career-ending events. But they are not isolated events. They are a constant, dripping tap of disrespect. It's the psychological weight of having to prove your competence again and again and again. It's the exhaustion of fighting for the airtime to speak. It's the frustration of being judged on a completely different and infinitely more complex set of standards than your peers. This is what it means to operate in the spaces in between. It's a battle fought not with legal briefs and precedents, but with patience, resilience, and a profound sense of fatigue. It chips away at confidence, it fuels imposter syndrome, and it creates an environment where women have to expend enormous amounts of energy just to get to the same starting line as men. The question then becomes, what is the cumulative cost of this daily battle? What happens when 1,000 tiny cuts finally become a major wound? That wound, that cumulative cost, isn't just a metaphor. It has a name. It's called burnout. It's called disillusionment. It's the primary driver behind a phenomenon legal scholars call the leaky pipeline, where brilliant, talented women who enter the profession at the same rate as men suddenly start disappearing from the path to partnership and leadership. They don't just vanish. They are worn down, pushed out, and exhausted by a battle they never should have had to fight. This isn't about a lack of ambition or a lack of resilience. It's about the crushing weight of an invisible, second job that most female lawyers are forced to perform every single day. It's called emotional labor. Think about it. In any given meeting, who is often tacitly expected to be the social lubricant? Who is supposed to smooth over the ego of a difficult partner, de-escalate a tense client, or even remember to organize the team lunch? Overwhelmingly, it's the women in the room. This isn't in the job description. It doesn't count toward the billable hour, but it is an absolute expectation. A male lawyer can be gruff, single-minded, even a little socially awkward. It's often written off as him being focused or a genius. But a woman exhibiting the same traits is labeled difficult, cold, or not a team player. So she learns to perform. She smiles when she's being interrupted. She uses softening language in her emails, just wanted to gently follow up, or sorry to bother you. Phrases her male colleagues rarely, if ever, use. She spends a portion of her finite mental energy every day managing the perceptions and emotions of those around her, just to be seen as competent and likable enough to do her actual job. This is a tax. A tax on her time, a tax on her energy, a tax that her male peers simply do not have to pay. This constant performance and the relentless scrutiny that necessitates it inevitably breeds a powerful internal enemy, imposter syndrome. It's a cruel irony. The very women who have to be twice as good to get half as far are the ones most likely to feel like they don't belong there at all. When your expertise is constantly being subtly questioned, when you're mistaken for the court reporter for the 10th time, when a client asks to speak to the real lawyer, after you've just given them brilliant legal advice, a corrosive seed of doubt is planted. You start to wonder, are they right? Am I a fraud? This doubt metastasizes. It leads to chronic overpreparation, spending hours triple-checking a memo that a male colleague would have sent after a single review. It leads to a reluctance to speak up in meetings, for fear of saying the wrong thing and confirming the unspoken bias in the room. It means attributing hard-won victories to luck or help from the team, while internalizing every minor setback as a personal failure, as proof of your inadequacy. This isn't a simple lack of confidence. It is a psychological response to an environment that constantly sends the message, you have to prove you belong here. And the tragedy is, no amount of success ever seems to be enough to silence that voice, because the external environment keeps turning up the volume. Then there is the tightrope walk of personality, the ultimate double bind known as the likability trap. In the adversarial world of law, assertiveness is a prerequisite for success. A male lawyer who is aggressive, relentless, and uncompromising in a negotiation or in court is lauded. He's a shark, a bulldog, a fighter. He's exactly who you want in your corner. When a woman displays the exact same traits, using the exact same tactics, she is often painted with a very different brush. She's abrasive, shrill, emotional, or the word used to silence assertive women for centuries, difficult. The research on this is damning. Studies of performance reviews show that women are far more likely to receive negative feedback on their personality. Phrases like "her tone is off-putting" or "she needs to be more collaborative" are commonplace in the reviews of high-performing women, while their male counterparts are rarely, if ever, judged on this subjective, gendered scale. So what's the alternative? She can try to be more collaborative, more nurturing, more likable. But this is another trap. If she's too nice, she's perceived as weak, a pushover, not tough enough to handle the high-stakes litigation or the cutthroat corporate deal. She's not seen as partner material. It is an impossible standard. She is forced to constantly modulate her behavior, to find that impossibly thin line between being respected and being liked, a line that for men is so wide it's practically a highway. This constant self-monitoring is, again, exhausting. It is another cognitive load, another tax on her mental resources that prevents her from focusing purely on the practice of law. She's not just arguing the facts of the case. She's simultaneously managing the juries, the judges, and even her own client's perception of her personality. And all of this entire gauntlet of emotional labor, imposter syndrome, and the likability trap, is happening before we even consider what happens when she leaves the office. For many female lawyers, the end of the workday simply means the beginning of the second shift. Despite decades of social progress, women in heterosexual relationships, even in high-earning professions like law, still bear a wildly disproportionate share of domestic and childcare responsibilities. This isn't just about doing more laundry. It's about the mental load, the endless, invisible, thankless job of managing a household. It's knowing when the kids have a dentist appointment, what's needed from the grocery store, scheduling the plumber, remembering the birthdays, planning the meals, and coordinating the childcare. It is the role of the household CEO, a job with no pay, no recognition, and no time off. Imagine drafting a multi-million-dollar merger agreement at 10 p.m., your focus already frayed from a grueling day, and then being interrupted by a call from school about a sick child. Imagine having to use your precious few vacation days not for a relaxing break, but to cover gaps in childcare. The COVID-19 pandemic threw this disparity into stark, undeniable relief. As law firms went remote, female lawyers found themselves trying to conduct depositions from their living rooms while simultaneously homeschooling their children. The lines between work and home didn't just blur, they were obliterated. And while many men certainly stepped up, study after study confirmed that the bulk of the added domestic burden fell on women, pushing many to the absolute breaking point. This isn't a complaint about the challenges of work-life balance. This is an indictment of a system that expects women to compete on a level playing field, while carrying a 100-pound pack that their competitors do not. These 1,000 cuts, the microaggressions, the invisible labor, the double standards, the second shift, they are not small things. They are everything. They are the systemic friction that grinds down even the most brilliant and ambitious women. They are the reason why so many look up the ladder at a partner who works 80 hours a week and has a spouse managing everything at home, and they don't see a role model to emulate. They see an impossible, unsustainable, and frankly undesirable choice. The psychological cost becomes too high, the sacrifice is too great, and so they begin to leave. But they are not leaving because they can't handle the law. They are leaving because they can no longer handle the inequity. The problem isn't the women, it is the very structure of the profession itself. A structure built by and for a world that no longer exists. A structure of billable hours, face time, and up or out promotion that was never designed to accommodate the realities of modern life, especially for women. Let's talk about that structure. And at its heart, at the very core of this rigid, unforgiving architecture, is a concept that sounds innocuous but is, in reality, one of the most significant barriers to a woman's advancement in law. It's called the billable hour. For those outside the legal world, it works like this. A lawyer's time is divided into tiny increments, usually 6 or 10 minutes. Every email, every phone call, every moment spent researching or drafting a document is meticulously recorded and billed to a client. The firm in turn sets a target for each lawyer, a minimum number of hours they must bill each year. It might be 1,800, 2,000, sometimes even more. It's a system designed to measure productivity, to turn time itself into a commodity. But what it really does is create a relentless, unforgiving treadmill. This model doesn't just measure work. It redefines what work is. It creates a hierarchy of value where only the billable task matters. Time spent mentoring a junior associate? Not billable. Time spent on firm committees working on diversity and inclusion initiatives? Not billable. Time spent developing new client relationships over a long lunch? Maybe partially billable, but often viewed as a soft activity. Time spent simply thinking, staring at a wall and connecting the complex threads of a case? Absolutely not billable. The system rewards only the direct, quantifiable output of labor, punishing the very activities that build a healthy, sustainable, and innovative professional culture. It turns lawyers from counselors and thinkers into assembly line workers, their value measured not by the quality of their insights, but by the sheer volume of 6-minute increments they can log in a day. Now, imagine navigating this system as a woman, particularly a woman with a family. The billable hour model was conceived in an era when the default lawyer was a man with a wife at home managing every aspect of domestic life. His only job was to be at the office. The system was built on the assumption of a support structure that, for most women, simply does not exist. For them, there is no one at home managing the plumber, the school pickups, the doctor's appointments. They are often the default parent, the chief operating officer of the household. So when a child gets sick, that's not just a personal crisis, it's a professional one. Every hour spent at the pediatrician's office is an hour that cannot be billed. It's an hour that puts her further behind her male colleague, whose wife is handling the exact same situation at home. The school play at 2 p.m. isn't just a treasured memory to be made. It's a calculated loss of 3, maybe 4 billable hours that will have to be made up late at night, after the kids are asleep, when exhaustion is setting in. This creates a second shift that is largely invisible to the firm. A male lawyer works from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and is seen as a hero, a grinder. A female lawyer works from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., rushes home to feed, bathe, and put her children to bed, and then logs back on from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. She may have worked the exact same number of hours, but her commitment is questioned because she wasn't physically present for the late-night pizza order. This brings us to the billable hours' toxic cousin, the culture of face time. In many firms, there's an unspoken rule that you must be seen. You must be at your desk early, and you must stay late. Your physical presence is used as a proxy for your dedication. It's a deeply flawed metric from a bygone era, one that equates presence with productivity. In this culture, the woman who leaves at 5:30 p.m. to be with her family is viewed with suspicion. It doesn't matter if she's more efficient. It doesn't matter if she produces higher quality work in less time. It doesn't matter if she's meeting her billable target by working after hours. The perception is that she is less committed. Her empty chair at 7 p.m. speaks louder than her brilliant legal brief submitted at midnight. This dynamic feeds directly into a well-documented phenomenon known as the maternal wall. It's a form of bias where colleagues and superiors assume mothers are less competent and less committed to their careers. They are passed over for challenging assignments, taken off the partnership track, and excluded from important client meetings that happen after hours. The billable hour system provides the perfect cover for this bias. A manager can look at a mother's slightly lower billable numbers that are lower because she's not padding her time or staying late just to be seen, and use that data as objective proof that she's not pulling her weight. The context is ignored. The efficiency is dismissed. The invisible labor of the second shift is completely discounted. The system itself becomes a tool to legitimize and reinforce pre-existing biases. And this doesn't just impact mothers. It creates a chilling effect for all women in the profession. Young female associates see the impossible tightrope their senior colleagues are walking and make a rational calculation. They see brilliant women burning out, being pushed out, or voluntarily leaving the partner track because the personal cost is simply too high. This creates a self-fulfilling prophecy for the firm. They see women leaving and conclude, see, they just don't have what it takes, rather than engaging in the critical self-reflection required to ask, what is it about our structure that is driving away half of our talent pool? Even women who choose not to have children are not immune. They often face the opposite bias, an expectation that they should be available 24/7 because they don't have family commitments. They are expected to pick up the slack, to take the last-minute business trips, to be the ones who are always on call, leading to a different but equally potent form of burnout. It's a structural pincer move. Women are either penalized for having a family or exploited for not having one. In both scenarios, the underlying assumption is that their time is more flexible and less valuable than a man's. This is the tyranny of a system that measures value in 6-minute increments. It atomizes life, forcing an impossible choice between professional ambition and personal well-being. It systematically disadvantages anyone who has significant responsibilities outside the office, a group that is still disproportionately female. It's a slow, grinding erosion of talent, not because these women are less capable, less ambitious, or less brilliant, but because they are trying to succeed in a game where the rules were written by and for someone else. They are running a marathon, but the system forces them to carry an extra 20 pounds for every mile. And even for those who manage to endure, who somehow navigate the labyrinth of billable hours and FaceTime culture, another, more subtle and perhaps more damaging, set of challenges awaits them as they get closer to the top. Because the structural barriers are only half the story. The other half is about who holds the power, who sets the tone, and the deeply ingrained club-like atmosphere that still pervades the highest echelons of the legal world. And this club has a name. We've all heard it, the Old Boys Club. It sounds almost quaint, like something out of a black and white movie. But for countless female lawyers, it is a very real, very modern barrier. It's not a formal organization with a clubhouse and a secret handshake. It's an invisible architecture of relationships, built over decades, that dictates who gets invited into the rooms where real decisions are made. And overwhelmingly, those rooms are still filled with men. This isn't necessarily about conscious, malicious exclusion. It's far more subtle, and in many ways more insidious than that. It's about the informal networks where power and influence are truly traded. The most important conversations in a law firm often don't happen during a scheduled partner meeting. They happen on the 18th hole of the golf course. They happen over a third scotch at a steakhouse. They happen in the locker room after a squash game. These are the spaces where relationships are forged, where trust is built, and where opportunities are born. A partner mentions a huge new potential client they're trying to land. A young male associate who happens to be there chimes in with a smart idea. Suddenly, he's on the pitch team. He's got FaceTime with the client. He's on the fast track. Meanwhile, his female colleague, who is equally or even more qualified, was never even aware the opportunity existed. She wasn't invited on the golf trip. Not because the partners dislike her, but because it simply didn't occur to them. Their social circles, their hobbies, their way of unwinding. It's a self-selecting ecosystem. Inviting her might feel like changing the dynamic, like turning a casual hangout into a work event. So by default, she's left out. And when you are consistently left out of the informal, you are effectively locked out of the formal. You can bill more hours, write better briefs, and win more motions, but if you're not part of the conversation, you're always playing catch-up. This leads directly to one of the most significant hurdles, the sponsorship gap. We often talk about mentorship, and many firms have excellent formal mentorship programs. A mentor is someone who gives you advice. They tell you how to navigate the system. But a sponsor is different. A sponsor is someone with power who actively advocates for you behind closed doors. They are the ones in the compensation committee meeting who say, "We need to give her a bigger bonus. She's a star." They are the ones who, when a high-profile case comes in, pound the table and say, "She has to lead this. She's ready." The problem is a well-documented phenomenon called affinity bias. People in power, who are still predominantly older white men, tend to sponsor junior lawyers who remind them of themselves when they were younger. They see a spark of their own ambition, their own style, their own background in a young man, and they naturally want to champion him. It's a subconscious mirroring. They can easily envision him as a future leader because he looks and sounds like the leaders they've always known. A woman, however, might not fit that mold. Her style might be different. Her communication might be less aggressive but more collaborative. She doesn't reflect their own past. So while they might mentor her, offering helpful advice and encouragement, they are less likely to put their own political capital on the line to sponsor her. She gets a lot of people telling her she's doing a great job, but no one fighting for her when it actually counts. This is why you see so many talented female senior associates who are universally praised but get passed over for partner, while their male peers, who they know for a fact are not as skilled, ascend the ranks. They had a sponsor. She had a fan club. And if a woman tries to break through this by adopting the same assertive, aggressive tactics that are rewarded in her male colleagues, she runs headfirst into a brutal double standard, the likability penalty. This is one of the most maddening and exhausting challenges female lawyers face. The tightrope they are forced to walk is nearly invisible, but one misstep can be fatal to their career. Here's how it works. Society, and by extension the legal profession, has deeply ingrained expectations for male and female behavior. Men are expected to be assertive, decisive, and competitive. When a male lawyer pounds his fist on the table during a negotiation, he's seen as passionate, a fighter, a killer. He's exactly what the client is paying for. When a female lawyer does the exact same thing, using the same tone and the same language, she is often perceived as abrasive, emotional, shrill, or just plain difficult to work with. He is lauded for his leadership. She is criticized for her lack of interpersonal skills. A performance review for a male associate might say, "John is a real go-getter. He's aggressive in his pursuit of our client's interests, and he doesn't take no for an answer. He has real partner potential." The review for a female associate who behaves identically might read, "While Jane is technically proficient, her aggressive style can rub colleagues and opposing counsel the wrong way. She needs to work on softening her approach and being more of a team player. He is being groomed for leadership. She is being told to shrink." This creates a paralyzing double bind. If you are collaborative and nurturing, traits traditionally coded as feminine, you are seen as a wonderful team member, but you're not viewed as a leader. You're too nice to be a rainmaker, too soft to be a trial lawyer. You're passed over for promotions because you don't have the requisite sharp elbows. But if you are assertive and direct, traits traditionally coded as masculine, you are penalized for violating gender norms. You are deemed unlikable. And in a profession built on relationships, being unlikable is a death sentence. You can't win. You are expected to be simultaneously tough and gentle, authoritative and maternal, a bulldog in the courtroom and a den mother in the office. It is an impossible, exhausting performance, and the mental energy spent just trying to calibrate your personality on a daily basis is energy that isn't being spent on a client's case or on building a book of business. This bias isn't just internal to the firm. It radiates outward. Clients, especially from older, male-dominated industries, can carry these same subconscious biases. A female lawyer might walk into a boardroom with a junior male associate, and the client will automatically direct all their questions to the man, assuming he's in charge. She has to spend the first 10 minutes of every meeting subtly and professionally establishing her authority. A tax her male counterparts never have to pay. She has to work twice as hard to build the same level of trust and rapport that is often granted to a man by default. This directly impacts her ability to originate business, which is the ultimate currency in most law firms. The Old Boys Club isn't just about who you play golf with. It's about a shared, unspoken understanding of what power and authority look like. And for a long time it hasn't looked like a woman. It's a culture that doesn't just block women's paths. It actively questions their very presence in positions of power, forcing them to justify their ambition at every single turn. This constant need to justify ambition manifests in one of the most insidious and well-documented phenomena in the professional world: the likability penalty. It's a tightrope walk that male lawyers simply don't have to perform. For a man, ambition is expected. Assertiveness is leadership. A commanding presence in a courtroom or a boardroom is a sign of competence. But for a woman, those exact same traits are often interpreted through a completely different, and far more critical, lens. When she speaks with authority, she's abrasive. When she negotiates hard for her client or for her own salary, she's difficult. When she challenges a flawed argument, she's confrontational, not sharp. A study by the American Bar Association found that women in law are 4 times more likely than men to be described with words like aggressive, bossy, or emotional. Think about that. The very qualities that are prerequisites for success in a competitive field like law are weaponized against women. They are forced to moderate their behavior, to soften their language, to smile more, to preface a strong point with, "I'm sorry, but," or "This might be a silly question, but." They have to spend precious mental and emotional energy, not just on the substance of their legal work, but on managing the perceptions of everyone around them. They have to prove they are competent enough to do the job, but not so competent that they make their male colleagues uncomfortable. They have to be assertive, but not so assertive that they are deemed unlikable. This isn't just a feeling or a perception. It has tangible, career-altering consequences. A male partner who is seen as a tough negotiator gets the big cases and the high-profile clients. A female partner with the exact same style is seen as hard to work with, and colleagues may hesitate to staff her on their teams, subtly steering opportunities away from her. It's a slow, silent erosion of her career, a death by 1,000 paper cuts, all because she failed to perform the impossible task of being both a shark in the courtroom and a saint in the conference room. But if the likability penalty is a tightrope, then the maternal wall is a sheer cliff. This is the bias that slams down on women the moment they become mothers, or even when they are just perceived to be of an age where they might become mothers. It is perhaps the single most powerful force pushing women out of the legal profession. The assumptions are immediate and devastating. Suddenly, a woman who was once seen as a rising star is viewed with suspicion. Her commitment is questioned. Her ambition is assumed to have evaporated. A male lawyer who has a new baby is often congratulated. Colleagues might say, "Wow, another mouth to feed." He's more motivated than ever. His status as a father is seen as a sign of stability and responsibility, something that enhances his professional profile. He is a provider. For a woman, the narrative is flipped entirely. When she announces a pregnancy, the quiet, unspoken thought in the minds of many partners and colleagues is, well, there goes her career. She is no longer seen as a long-term investment. They assume she'll be distracted, that she won't want to travel, that she can't handle the long hours required for a major trial. These aren't malicious thoughts necessarily. They are often cloaked in the language of concern. We don't want to overwhelm her. Or, let's give her something less demanding while she adjusts. But the result is the same. She is sidelined. She is put on the mommy track. The most challenging, career-advancing assignments are quietly rerouted to her male peers, or to childless female colleagues. Her path to partnership, once a clear runway, is now suddenly overgrown with obstacles built from the stereotypes of others. The data on this is staggering. An ABA study revealed that 58% of mothers in law firms felt their commitment to their careers was questioned after having children. And 52% reported being denied or overlooked for advancement or promotion simply because they were mothers. This isn't just about big law firms either. In court, a pregnant lawyer or a new mother might face judges or opposing counsel who make inappropriate comments or question her ability to handle a case. Imagine preparing for a critical oral argument, while also fielding questions about your childcare arrangements from a judge who would never dream of asking a male attorney the same thing. The maternal wall is built on a foundation of outdated, deeply ingrained beliefs about gender roles. The idea that a woman's primary role is that of a caregiver, and her professional life is secondary. It ignores the reality that millions of women are brilliant, dedicated professionals who are also loving, capable mothers. It penalizes them for the very act of creating a family, something for which men are often rewarded. This creates an impossible choice. Many women feel they have to hide their family lives, to avoid talking about their children at work for fear it will be seen as a sign of weakness or divided loyalties. Others overcompensate, working even longer hours and taking on even more work than their male counterparts just to prove their commitment, leading to burnout at an unsustainable rate. The legal profession, with its rigid structure and its billable hour model that rewards face time above all else, is particularly hostile to the realities of caregiving. It was a system designed by men, for men who had wives at home managing the domestic sphere. And while society has changed, the fundamental structure of many legal institutions has not. It has not adapted to the reality of dual-career couples or the fact that women are just as ambitious and capable after having children as they were before. This wall isn't just a barrier to advancement, it's an exit sign. It is one of the primary reasons why, despite entering law schools in equal numbers to men for decades, women still make up a shockingly small percentage of equity partners, managing partners, and general counsels. They are pushed out by a system that prejudges their commitment and devalues their potential the moment they choose to become a parent. It's a quiet exodus of talent that the legal profession can no longer afford to ignore. This constant battle against perception, this exhausting tightrope walk between being liked and being respected, between being a mother and being a partner, creates a crushing cognitive load. It's a second job that women in law have to perform every single day. A job for which they are not paid and which their male colleagues don't even know exists. And this invisible labor doesn't just impact their well-being. It has a direct, measurable, and profoundly unfair impact on their wallets and their career trajectories. Because in the brutal zero-sum game of the modern law firm, time is more than money. Time is everything. Time is the metric by which your value, your commitment, and your future are judged. And the single most important unit of time is the billable hour. For anyone outside the legal world, the concept is simple. Lawyers track their work in tiny increments, often 6 minutes at a time, and bill clients for that time. The more hours you bill, the more valuable you are to the firm. It's a system that, on the surface, seems like the ultimate meritocracy, a cold, hard, objective measure of your contribution. But it's not. It's a trap. And it's a trap that disproportionately ensnares women. Why? Because all that invisible labor we just talked about, the mentoring, the committee work, the firm citizenship tasks, is almost entirely non-billable. When a female associate spends 2 hours comforting a junior colleague who is struggling with a difficult partner, that's 2 hours she's not billing. When she spends an afternoon planning the firm's diversity and inclusion seminar, that's an afternoon she's not billing. Meanwhile, her male colleague, who was asked to do neither of those things, spent that time racking up hours on a major client's file. At the end of the year, when the compensation committee looks at their timesheets, who do you think looks more dedicated? Who looks like the bigger rainmaker? The numbers don't tell the story of the woman who is holding the firm's culture together. They just show a discrepancy in billable hours. This isn't just about a few hours here and there. A 2018 study found that female lawyers perform, on average, over 200 more hours of non-billable work per year than their male counterparts. That's 5 full work weeks. 5 weeks of uncompensated, unrewarded, and often unappreciated labor that directly subsidizes the billable hours of men. It's a systemic transfer of career-building currency from women to men. This extends to the phenomenon known as office housework. It's the legal equivalent of being asked to take notes in a meeting, to order lunch for the team, or to plan the office holiday party. These tasks are essential for a smooth-running operation, but they are also administrative, stereotypically feminine, and carry zero prestige. And study after study shows that women are asked to do them far more often than men. When men volunteer for non-billable work, it's typically for high-profile, career-enhancing committees like the Finance or Strategy Committee. When women are asked, it's often for the softer, less powerful ones like recruiting or social events. Each time a woman says yes to ordering the coffee, she is saying no to an opportunity to draft a motion, to join a client call, or to simply get her own work done. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts. But the financial and time-based penalties are only part of the story. The more insidious challenge lies in the path to power itself, the path to partnership. And on this path, women face a critical gap: the sponsorship gap. We often hear about the importance of mentorship, and that's true. A mentor is someone who gives you advice, who talks to you. But a sponsor is different. A sponsor is a person in a position of power who uses their capital to advocate for your advancement. A sponsor talks about you in the rooms where decisions are made. A sponsor doesn't just give you advice on how to get promoted. They pound the table and make sure you get promoted. And in the legal world, where senior partnership is still overwhelmingly white and male, a powerful cognitive bias takes hold: affinity bias. People tend to sponsor and advocate for those who remind them of themselves. A senior male partner sees a young, ambitious male associate and thinks, "He reminds me of me when I was his age." He takes him under his wing, brings him to client meetings, gives him the best assignments, and champions his case for partner. That same partner might look at an equally talented female associate and, through no conscious malice, simply not feel that same connection. He mentors her, sure. He gives her advice. But does he put his own reputation on the line for her? The data suggests far too often the answer is no. Women in law are often over-mentored and under-sponsored. They are given endless advice on how to navigate a bias system, but they lack the powerful champions needed to break through it. This leads directly to one of the most maddening double binds faced by women in the profession: the likability penalty. The very qualities that are lauded as leadership in men are often penalized in women. When a male lawyer is aggressive in a negotiation, he's a shark, a fighter, a winner. When a female lawyer displays the exact same behavior, she's branded as difficult, abrasive, or emotional. He is seen as commanding, she is seen as bossy. He is passionate, she is hysterical. Think about salary negotiations. A man who negotiates his salary hard is seen as knowing his worth. A woman who does the same is often seen as ungrateful or not a team player, and it can actually hurt her standing in the firm. This forces women to perform a constant, exhausting tightrope walk. They must be assertive enough to be seen as competent, but not so assertive that they are disliked. They must be communal and warm, but not so much that they aren't taken seriously. This constant self-monitoring, this gender judo, consumes an immense amount of cognitive energy that their male colleagues can instead devote to the actual practice of law. It's like they're running the same race, but with a backpack full of rocks that the men don't have to carry. And then for many women, the ultimate career obstacle emerges: what's known as the maternal wall. It's a form of bias that is even more potent than the glass ceiling. The moment a woman announces she is pregnant, a wall of assumptions goes up around her. Colleagues and superiors, often with the best of intentions, start making decisions on her behalf. They assume her commitment will wane. They assume she won't want to travel. They assume she can no longer handle the pressure of high-stakes litigation. So, that career-making bet the company trial that she's been working towards for years? It's quietly reassigned to a male colleague to take some pressure off her. That important new client she was supposed to lead? It's given to someone else because the meetings might run late. These decisions are rarely made with malice. It's a form of benevolent sexism, a misguided attempt to protect the new mother. But the result is devastating. Her career trajectory flatlines. She is shunted onto the mommy track, a path of lower prestige work, fewer billable hours, and a near-zero chance of making partner. She is sidelined not because of her performance or her ambition, but because of a stereotype. These aren't isolated incidents. They are a pattern. The invisible labor, the office housework, the sponsorship gap, the likability penalty, and the maternal wall, they are not separate challenges. They are a web of interconnected biases, both conscious and unconscious, that systematically disadvantages women at every single stage of their legal careers. It's a gauntlet of 1,000 tiny cuts and a few major blows, all of which accumulate over time. So what happens when a brilliant, ambitious, highly educated woman, who entered law school with a passion for justice and a desire to succeed, faces this reality day after day, year after year? What happens when she consistently bills at the top of her class, yet sees less qualified men promoted ahead of her? What happens when she's exhausted from doing her job and a second, uncredited job of propping up the firm's culture? She starts to question if it's worth it. She starts to look for the exit. And this is the great tragic irony. The legal profession invests millions to recruit the best and brightest women, only to drive them out with a culture that refuses to see them, value them, and promote them in the same way it does men. And the exodus of this talent is reaching a crisis point. So what does this crisis look like on the ground day to day? It's not a single dramatic event. It's a slow, grinding erosion of ambition, a death by 1,000 paper cuts. It begins with the assumptions. A young female associate, brilliant, hungry, billing 2,000 hours a year, is seen as a future partner. The day she announces she's pregnant, a subtle shift occurs. Suddenly, she's perceived not as an asset, but as a future liability. The questions, often unasked but always felt, hang in the air. Will she still be committed? Can she still handle the pressure? Is she still on the team? This is the maternal wall, a form of gender bias so pervasive it's practically invisible to those who perpetuate it. It's the assumption that a woman's competence and commitment plummet the moment she becomes a mother. She returns from a 16-week maternity leave, a blip in a 40-year career, to find she's been taken off the high-profile case. The plum assignments are now going to the junior male associate who everyone agrees is unencumbered. Her path to partnership, once a clear straight line, is now a tangled maze with no map. She's told she's still valued, of course, but her performance reviews now contain coded language, needs to manage her time better, lacks the same fire she used to have. What they really mean is, she leaves at 5:30 to pick up her child from daycare. This brings us to the central unyielding mechanism that enforces this bias, the tyranny of the billable hour. In the world of big law, your value is distilled into 6-minute increments. It's a model that rewards one thing above all else: sheer brute force presence. It doesn't measure efficiency. It doesn't measure creativity or insight. It measures time spent in a chair in an office. This system was designed by men, for men, in an era when those men had wives at home managing every aspect of their domestic lives, freeing them up to work until midnight. Today, that model is a relic, but it refuses to die. For a woman who is still, in our society, the default primary caregiver, the billable hour is a straitjacket. She might be twice as efficient as her male colleague, producing higher quality work in 2/3 the time. But if his timesheet shows he was in the office until 10 p.m. and hers shows she left at 6, he is perceived as the more dedicated lawyer. The system doesn't reward her for working smarter. It punishes her for not working longer. She's forced into an impossible choice: sacrifice her family for her career, or sacrifice her career for her family. Many, looking at this rigged game, choose a third option. They walk away entirely. They leave the firm, taking their talent, their training, and their institutional knowledge with them, often to in-house counsel roles, government work, or entirely new professions where their contributions are measured by results, not by a stopwatch. And even for women who don't have children, or who have robust support systems, another, more insidious barrier remains: the sponsorship gap. We often talk about mentorship, and firms love to tout their mentorship programs. A mentor is someone who gives you advice, who talks to you. But a sponsor is different. A sponsor is a person in a position of power who talks about you in the rooms where decisions are made. A sponsor is the senior partner who, when a lucrative new case comes in, pounds the table and says, "Give it to Sarah. She can handle it. I'll vouch for her." Study after study shows that men are overwhelmingly sponsored by other men. It's a natural, though often unconscious, bias to want to elevate people who look and sound like you, people you see yourself in. Women, on the other hand, are often over-mentored and under-sponsored. They get plenty of advice on how to navigate the system, but they lack the powerful advocates in the smoke-filled rooms, or today the Zoom back channels, who will spend their own political capital to pull them up the ladder. Without a sponsor, a woman's career can stall out. She can be the most brilliant lawyer at her level, but if no one is fighting for her when partnership decisions are being made, she will be overlooked in favor of a less qualified man who has the right champion in his corner. This isn't just a matter of fairness. The consequences of this exodus are catastrophic, not just for women, but for the entire legal profession and the clients it serves. First, there's the staggering economic cost. A top law firm can spend upwards of $500,000 to recruit, hire, and train a new associate. When that associate leaves after 5 or 6 years, that investment is completely wiped out. Multiply that across thousands of women leaving the profession every year, and you're looking at a multi-billion-dollar brain drain. Firms are essentially operating as incredibly expensive training grounds for other industries. Second, this exodus starves the profession of diversity of thought. A leadership team composed almost entirely of men from similar backgrounds will have massive blind spots. They will approach problems in the same way, leading to echo chambers that stifle innovation. In a world where clients are facing increasingly complex, global challenges, a homogeneous legal team is a competitive disadvantage. Fortune 500 companies are now demanding diversity on their legal teams, not for optics, but because they know that diverse teams produce better outcomes. They get better advice, they see risks others miss, and they find more creative solutions. When a law firm cannot field a team that reflects the world we live in, it signals to its clients that it is stuck in the past. But the most profound cost is to the very concept of justice itself. The law is not an abstract set of rules. It is a living, breathing institution that shapes every aspect of our society. It determines our rights, our safety, and our freedoms. When the people who write, interpret, and argue that law are overwhelmingly from one demographic, the law itself becomes skewed. It reflects their priorities, their experiences, and their biases. The absence of women in the senior ranks of the legal profession means their perspectives are missing when precedents are set, when legislation is drafted, and when justice is dispensed. It means we are operating a legal system with one hand tied behind its back, deprived of the talent, wisdom, and insight of half the population. The system isn't just leaking talent, it's hemorrhaging it. The question is no longer if this structure will fail, but what the landscape of American law will look like after it does. And more importantly, who will be brave enough to start rebuilding it? The answer, it turns out, isn't a who, it's a they. And they aren't waiting for permission. They are the women who walked away from the crumbling pillars of traditional law, not in defeat, but with a blueprint for something better in their hands. The great exodus of female talent that we see as a crisis is also, paradoxically, the single greatest catalyst for innovation the American legal profession has ever seen. Because these women aren't just leaving a job, they are leaving a model. They are rejecting an entire philosophy of work and value that has proven to be, for them and for so many others, bankrupt. For a century, the blueprint for a successful law firm was simple, brutal, and exclusively masculine. It was a pyramid. A handful of partners, almost always men, at the top, profiting from the grueling, non-stop labor of a massive base of young associates below. The currency of this kingdom was the billable hour, a 6-minute unit of time, tracked and tallied with obsessive precision. Your worth wasn't measured in your wisdom, your efficiency, or the brilliant outcome you secured for a client. It was measured in your endurance. How many 6-minute increments could you sacrifice at the altar of the firm? The model didn't just encourage overwork, it required it. It was the entire business plan. And it created a culture where face time was more valuable than family time, where presence was mistaken for productivity, and where the ideal worker had no other competing responsibilities. No sick children, no aging parents, no personal life that couldn't be instantly discarded for a partner's late-night demand. This is the system that is hemorrhaging talent. And the women who are leaving are not simply trying to build a nicer version of that same broken structure. They are dynamiting the foundation. They are building something new from the ground up, based on a completely different set of principles. They are the architects of what is now called New Law. It's more than a buzzword, it's a rebellion. At the heart of this rebellion is the assassination of the billable hour. These new firms, often lean, tech-savvy, and founded by women, looked at the billable hour and saw it for what it was: a fundamental conflict of interest. A system that rewards inefficiency. The longer a task takes, the more the firm makes. It makes no sense for the client, so they threw it out. In its place, they're using flat fees, project-based pricing, and even subscription models. They tell the client up front, here is the value we will provide, and here is what it will cost. Period. The incentive is no longer to be slow, it's to be brilliant. It's to be efficient. It's to leverage technology and expertise to get the best possible result in the smartest way. Suddenly, the lawyer's goals and the client's goals are perfectly aligned. This isn't just a tweak to the business model. It's a moral and strategic revolution. And this revolution is powered by technology. The old guard, the massive legacy firms, are like aircraft carriers. Powerful, immense, but incredibly slow to turn. They're bogged down by bureaucracy, expensive real estate in downtown skyscrapers, and layers of management. The new law firms are like a fleet of speedboats. They use cloud-based software, artificial intelligence for document review, and virtual meeting platforms to deliver top-tier legal services without the crushing overhead. They don't need a corner office on the 50th floor to prove their worth. Their worth is in their results. This allows them to be more agile, more responsive, and often more affordable for clients who are themselves tired of paying for mahogany desks and marble lobbies. But the most profound change is the redefinition of the workplace itself. These women are building firms where people can have a life and a career, not as a favor but as a core business strategy. They understand that a burned-out, sleep-deprived lawyer is not a good lawyer. They understand that creativity and sharp legal analysis don't magically appear at 2 a.m. after a 16-hour day. They're implementing flexible schedules, remote work options, and parental leave policies that are actually designed to be used. They are creating cultures that value output, not office occupation. They are proving client by client, case by case, that you can be fiercely dedicated to the law and fiercely dedicated to your own well-being at the same time. That they are, in fact, two sides of the same coin. Consider the story of a lawyer we'll call Jessica. Jessica was a star associate at a prestigious New York firm. She made law review, she clerked for a federal judge, she did everything right. For 7 years, she billed over 2,000 hours a year. She sacrificed vacations, postponed starting a family, and lived on a diet of caffeine and adrenaline. She was on the partnership track. And one Tuesday, sitting in her office at 10 p.m., staring at a mountain of documents for a deal that she knew was more about billable hours than client need, she had a revelation. She wasn't building a career. She was serving a sentence. The golden handcuffs felt less like a prize and more like a trap. So she walked away. Everyone told her she was crazy, that she was throwing away a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. For 6 months she felt lost. But then she started talking to her former clients, small business owners, tech startups. They complained constantly about their legal bills. They felt ignored by the big firms, treated like a number. They wanted a real partner, someone who understood their business. And that's when the idea hit. Jessica used her savings to launch a small, virtual law firm. She focused on a niche she knew well: intellectual property for tech startups. She offered a subscription service. For a flat monthly fee, her clients got unlimited consultations, contract reviews, and trademark filings. She used AI-powered software to automate the routine work, freeing her up to focus on high-level strategy. She had no office. She worked from home, from a coffee shop, from a co-working space. Her overhead was a fraction of her old firm's. She passed those savings on to her clients. Within 2 years, she was making more money than she ever did as an associate, and she was working half the hours. She set her own schedule. She took real vacations. She had a baby. But more than that, she felt a sense of purpose she had never known. Her clients weren't just a source of billable hours. They were partners. She was helping them build their dreams. She hadn't just left her old job. She had created a new one on her own terms. Jessica's story isn't an anomaly. It is the archetype of this new movement. Thousands of women across America are writing similar stories. They are founding boutique litigation firms, alternative dispute resolution practices, and legal tech companies. They are becoming in-house counsel and using their corporate buying power to demand that their outside law firms change, demanding diversity in their legal teams and value in their billing. This isn't a quiet evolution. It's a disruption, and it's forcing the old guard to pay attention. Suddenly, those giant aircraft carrier firms are starting to talk about innovation and work-life balance. They're launching women's initiatives and appointing chief diversity officers. Some of it is genuine, a slow awakening to a new reality. A lot of it is a panicked response to the fact that their business model is under attack. They are losing the war for talent, and they are losing clients who are realizing there is a better, smarter, more efficient way to get legal help. The rebuilding of the American legal landscape isn't a hypothetical future event. It is happening right now in real time. It's being led by the very people the old system was designed to exclude and exploit. They are turning their exclusion into an insurgency, building a new world not on the ruins of the old one, but right alongside it, making it obsolete one client at a time.